Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, once again your host. Tired of me? Well, tough it. Anyhow, go down, hit subscribe if you would for us, hit the notification bell. Leave a comment if you want to leave a comment. We always like stuff, we always do this stuff, unless it's something just so abhorrent and so awful that has nothing to do with the video, like you're spamming or something. We don't get rid of anything. We'll take the criticism along with the compliments. Go to the About section, Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, Legend Superstition Mountain t-shirts, long sleeve, short sleeve, gray, black. Got all through that. And here we are, still out in the mountains. I don't know what it is, a thing with the wind in me this year. The wind likes to come in and kind of blow through, but it feels good. It's probably about 95, 98 degrees, so we're in the mid and upper 90s right now, but the mornings are cool. One of the things that happens at this point is the ground's still cool. If you dig down a little, you'll find the earth's cool. You'll put your hand on the ground, it's cool at night. And the next month or so, the ground will stay warm at night. It'll start warming up the ground, and that's when that heat starts coming in. It starts trying to release the heat, and we get those very warm nights. A couple months, it's going to be 95 degree low at night and 110, 115 high during the day. At that point, we just stay in. We enjoy the air conditioning, the swimming pool, and that's just the way it is. That's when we do our research. But for right now, another story. Sometime late 80s, it was temporary employment. Got a job where one of those jobs where if you work there 6 months or 9 months, you get a permanent job. And it was a warehouse, and it wasn't construction, which I enjoyed, and it was indoors. But I was the guy that would help stack stuff on pallets and put plastic wrap around them and help the guy with the forklift and take inventory and check down the truckload and stuff and do all that. And it was a pretty easy job. We had coolers in there. They weren't really coolers, but they blew air that was not 110 degrees, so it was pretty nice. And I didn't think it was too bad of a job. It was the kind of job you come in, you make some coffee, because that was one of the first jobs I was taught, was how to make the coffee. You get in, here's a key, you make the coffee, and then everybody starts rolling in. So I got in, and the guy I worked with was a guy I remember as Brady. I don't know if it was his first name or his last name. Everybody called him Brady. I have no idea. He was an older guy, probably between 60 and 120. Gray, a lot of gray through his hair and stuff. He probably weighed 120 pounds soaking wet. Always wore baggy clothes, but he was a nice guy. And always smoked these Camel cigarettes, non-filter Camels. Always pinched them. And he would smoke them like he was getting the last of everything out of them. But he was a nice guy. I worked with him. He stayed on the forklift pretty much. He got on there. He ate lunch there. When we had lunch, he just stayed on the forklift. So I worked with Brady for a while, and then one day he asked me, I got a couple books. And he said, have you ever heard anything about Superstition Mountains? And I said, yeah, I know. I actually kind of know something about the mountains. I've read some books, and I've spent time out there. So he peppered me with some questions. He seemed very interested. He'd grown up out here and lived out here his whole life. He knew about the Lost Dutchman, kind of the myth, the legend type thing, but he'd gotten this book. And he was quite interested in it. And he kept asking me questions about places and stuff. He said, I'd like to see some of that. And I said, well, it's a pretty rugged place. It's pretty tough and all. He says, well, there's just some things I'd like to see, just to see them for myself. He said, would you ever go out? You know, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go out. So we arranged for me to stop by his house on a Saturday morning. And I parked, and then we're going to take his truck, go in, and he wanted to see what he called Castle Rock, but the Spanish graveyard, and he wanted to see Miner's Needle. And I said, that works out. We can do that in one trip. Got his truck. His truck had some paint left. It was a lot of rust. It was this old Ford pickup. It didn't sound like it ran very well. It sounded like the clutch was out. There was no air conditioning. There was, in fact, no windows on the doors, because I went to roll mine up and realized it just went around and around. And we drove out. And once in a while he'd say something, but it wasn't very conversational. He seemed lost in thought. So we got out there, and we parked. We went over, and I decided to take him the trail back by Miner's Needle and take him out to Castle Rock. And he was very quiet, just looking around, walking. He didn't do too bad. I was surprised. We were making good time. I was back in those days. I was running like knife through butter. So I had my young man legs, but he was doing fine, and I wasn't trying to be in any hurry. We went back. We went down the trail. Like I said, he was very quiet, looking around. I could tell he was enjoying it. And at one point I said, okay, that's Castle Rock. That's the Spanish graveyard. And he stopped, and he went, oh. He just stood there. And I thought we were going to continue to move, take him around to show him Miner's Needle and stuff. And he just stood there about 15 minutes, just stared at it. And then he just started walking again. I'm like, okay. So we moved down, and after a short time, we got a good view of Miner's Needle. And I said, that's Miner's Needle. And same thing, stopped. There was a rock, boulder, off to the side, so he went and sat on it. And he just, like in contemplation, stared at Miner's Needle. And I waited for a question, something he'd have to say. Nothing, he just sat there for a long, long time. Then he got up and started walking back out. So we walked our way back out. Got back to the truck. He said, thank you. He said, that was a heck of a trip. He said, I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I learned a lot. I don't know what he learned. He saw Castle Rock, he saw Miner's Needle. Back. We work a few more weeks. And then he said, I always wanted to see that massacre grounds. I heard about that. And I said, well, that's pretty easy, because back then at massacre grounds, you could drive almost all the way up there. The road got so bad, so wide, so just tore everything up. That was the end of it. But back then you could drive right up there. It was a very short hike. So I figured, well, shit, there's a lot to show them up there. Silver Lock of Malm, the massacre grounds and stuff. I knew where someone had found some ore up there, possibly from Spanish pack saddle. So I thought there's a lot we could do. So we got up, got on the trail. We got to a certain point, and then I started talking, and he stopped. And I said, well, down in here is probably where the massacre was, and they say the last stand was down in this area. Silver Lock and Malm are over that way more. And then I talked about a couple other things and the history, and he stood there for a while. And then he turned around and started walking back. And I thought, well, we've done our piece. We've been walking maybe for about 25 minutes, but that's all he wanted. And off we went again. And a few more weeks, a month goes by. And he said, I'd really like to see that thing blacktop. Weaver's Needle and all that. I said, okay. So we did the same thing, and the same thing happened. We never made it up blacktop. He got between Palomino, blacktop, saw Weaver's Needle, looked around, turned around, and we came out after 15 minutes of looking at it. So at this point, I figured that's what we do. We just do that. And I thought it was a bit odd. Wasn't quite sure about the whole rhyme, reason, purpose. He never asked about those things again. Never asked about the cat, unless he was pulling something out of a book. So the last trip we made, he said he wanted to see that map, the Spanish map. I said, that's a long trip, man. And he said, I think I can do it. And I'm like, well, I'll tell you, we'll go do it. And I said, just, make sure you're plenty rested up. We got to be plenty of water. It'd be good if we went to Charlie Boy and stayed the night and came out, because I said, that's a long trip. He's like, well, let's just see what we do. So we got fully loaded packs, got on the trail, down through Rush Corral Basin, down Bull Pass, through Marsh Valley, get to what they call the Spanish map, master map, or whatever. And he sits on the ground Indian style for an hour just looking at it. Never a word. And I'm over having a cigarette, walking around looking under bushes and stuff. I was just kind of like, okay, no, he's not bringing a camera. He's just looking at the thing. And you could tell he was thoroughly enjoying himself. And he got up finally and just went, well, that's that. And then started heading back out. And I'm like, do you want to go, Charlie Boy? And he just kept going. I figured he's my ride, so I got to follow him. And I was like, man, we took that break. We walked out, and every trip we made, we never took a break. He walked from that master map all the way to that parking lot and never stopped. Now, I was pretty much a young man in my 20s. And by the time we got to the parking lot, he was sitting there on the tailgate of his truck waiting for me because I was just about shot having made that trip there in and back out one day, literally just with that hour break standing there at the map, which I didn't sit down much of that. I just stood around figuring I don't know what we're going to do. But he wore me out like nothing, just to show you sometimes those guys just with a little steady pace just can keep going. And he made it back up Bull Pass without a stop all the way back out to the parking lot. So I didn't last there much longer after that because there were some guys that kind of made fun of him and gave him crap. And I didn't know the main perpetrator at that time was the owner's son or son-in-law. And I got into it with him. We got into a scuffle because I thought Brady was a really nice guy. I never saw anything from him. I wasn't always sure if he was, I'm never sure, and I don't mean this insultingly, if he was like the brightest light bulb in the room, but he was a very nice guy. And I didn't see any reason to give him any grief. And this guy just rode him hard. And it was just cruel almost to a point sometimes. So one day I had enough and I threw something and then we got into it. And this is a grown man, probably 6'2" and stuff, but I was done. Brady wasn't going to stick up for himself. I was fed up with it. And so then I got to work a few more days, and then the owner called me in and asked me what happened, and I told him, and he said, well, that's my brother-in-law, and there's not much I can do. Like, you can't work here no more. My sister won't have it. And I'm just like, whatever. And that was the last I saw of Brady or any of those guys. I didn't get much of a good lick in on that guy. It was more of just like frickin' trying to throw punches, and we ended up more in a mess and stuff. But I felt good about what I did. And I asked Brady afterwards, and he said, what's the purpose? What's the use? Sticks and stones. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You're a better man than I. I wouldn't take that crap. So I don't know what happened to him, but it was one of the most puzzling series of trips I made, just because I do not know what his intention was other than just to see it, which is what I guess it was, the same for so many of us, to get in the mountains and see what was there. I don't think he had any intention on treasure hunting, any intention on finding the Lost Dutchman Mine. He just wanted to go to some places in the books that interested him, and that's what we did. And I was glad to accommodate him. Like I said, he always seemed happy in that old truck, man. I was surprised every time we made it there and made it back, man. I kept waiting for that truck just to break down, but it held together. So there's the story of Brady. That was probably 84, 85, somewhere right in there. I was working for that, and then I got back into construction after that, picked up and started framing again. But it was a good time, good trips, you know, nice little day trips and all. So there you go. Pick up Jesse Feldman's book, Trail of the Dutchman. Pick up any other books by our good friends, Jack Sanfelice, Ron Feldman, Tom Collenborn. There's a lot of people with good books out there available at the museum. They're available online at Amazon. Jesse's isn't, but we're going to work on them. But go down, visit Goldfield Ghost Town. Watch the TV shows. There's a lot of good stuff out there right now. I know it's made for entertainment, so sue me over it, you know. It's just meant to be sit there on the couch and enjoy it. And that's what I try to do, is just kind of set myself aside, enjoy it for what it is. And I don't try to review those very often. I'm very tempted to, but I always feel like, in particular, I'm tearing them down more than building them up. And I don't really want to do it to those guys, because more power to them. It's always good to get yourself out there. They'll learn the lesson what the cable television, network TV, and productions really like. And if that's the life they want for right now in their lives, that's cool and all. But it is what it is. So hope you're enjoying yourself. We'll be doing one here eventually, time down the line, putting a trailer together and talking a bit about sunset, because that's going to be a really cool experience for everybody down the line. So we'll get that, and there's other things always in the pipe. The Rendezvous coming up in November, and that'll be very cool, because I already got the wheels a spinning, and we're going to try to make it a Saturday days event. So have a lot to go on, try to make it more public friendly and kind of make it for people. Take it a little, open it up as we get closer and closer to the 20th anniversary of the rendezvous. So thanks for joining us. And as always, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends. Take care.